This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Donald Trump has revoked Obama's guidelines on transgender bathrooms. So we all know about how Obama and his administration were all for and pushing this agenda of the transgender people deciding what bathroom they could take a leak in based on whatever they felt. Now, could someone like myself, who's a male, can I go into the women's room? No, I can't. Would I want to? No. But if I had to make an emergency run, hey, I'd be arrested for it. These people are allowed to choose where they want to go to the bathroom, and nobody in this country seemed to blink an eyelash at thinking it was all insanity. So Donald Trump has revoked the Obama guidelines. Now, I know people are applauding and cheering and saying it's good. I personally still feel that this is part of the divide and conquer agenda. I feel they're having Trump do all of these things to cause more controversy in the country, more division, to get people more riled up. But that's just my take on it. I try to look at the bigger picture, steps ahead, and what the purpose of all of this is. And as I've said before, I'm trying to look at this from a perspective of giving this all a chance. But at the same time, I do fully believe that the Republicans and the Democrats are the same party. It's all part of divide and conquer and the illusion that they've created to make Americans think that this is a republic and a democracy, when in fact this is controlled. So President Trump's administration on Wednesday revoked landmark guidance to public schools letting transgender students use the bathrooms of their choice, reversing a signature initiative of former Democratic President Barack Obama. Reversing the Obama guidelines stands to inflame passions in the latest conflict in America between believers in traditional values and social progressives, and is likely to prompt more of the street protests that followed Trump's November 8th election. And we've already actually seen that. We see gays outside the White House as we speak, protesting, standing there screaming stuff about how they want to be able to go to the bathroom wherever they want. Which obviously this is all planting seeds for more rights for transgender people, for the acceptance of insanity in our society where men can wear wigs and decide that they're women, and people are going along with this stuff thinking that it's normal because they're so dumbed down and they're walking, talking zombies. But nonetheless, this decision by Donald Trump obviously is something I support, but I don't think that these things are put in place to just do this. I think it's put in place to push a further divide and conquer agenda. But nonetheless, transgender people should not be allowed to go into the bathroom that they choose. But again, I think this is going to cause more civil unrest and more problems and more division for people looking to have Trump thrown out of office and bring in martial law, which is what the people keep asking for, which is frightening at this point. But the article goes on to say Obama had instructed public schools last May to let transgender students use the bathrooms matching their chosen gender identity, threatening to withhold funding for schools that did not comply. Transgender people hailed the step as victory for their civil rights. I mean, think about the insanity behind that. A victory for their civil rights because they can pick what toilet they want to crap in public. Unbelievable. Trump, a Republican who took office last month, rescinded those guidelines even though they had been put on hold by a federal judge, arguing that states and public schools should have the authority to make their own decisions without federal interference. The Justice and Education departments will continue to study the legal issues involved. According to the new superseding guidance that will be sent to public schools, about 200 people gathered in front of the White House to protest against Trump's action, waving their rainbow flags and chanting, "No hate, no fear, trans students are welcome here." More of this pointless protesting that people do. This is all staged. This is all for television, for theatrics, because nothing gets done when these people stand outside and protest. Nothing. Nobody cares, but they air it on TV. They make it look like it's something bigger than it is to get more people around the world riled up. The rainbow flag, it says, is a symbol of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender or LGBT people. When in fact, of course, we all know that the rainbow is God's promise to us. It's a biblical symbol, but of course they've kidnapped it, they've abducted it like they do with many symbols out there. It says, we all know that Donald Trump is a bully, but his attack on transgender children today is a new low, said Rachel Tiven, who is the chief executive of an organization that advocates for LGBT people. So this is an attack on transgender children. Hello? Children shouldn't be transgender. They don't even know what's going on. How many times do I need to say it? What 6-year-old knows what's going on? When I was 6 years old, I didn't have a clue what was going on. I'm walking around wearing a New York Giants t-shirt, throwing a football at a tree, thinking that I'm going to be a football player. I didn't have a clue. No 6-year-old has a clue. I'm going to school. We got kids with, Peter Pan lunchboxes walking around, kids picking their noses. Now they're deciding what sex they are. Now we have now we have children telling parents what to do. Dad, I'm a tranny. Go get me a dress because I'm a boy and I want to wear it. Dad, I better go do it. I better go. What's going on? There can't be confrontation. There can't be discipline in this world. You know why? Because it's all about the do without will mindset. They don't want discipline. Everyone's allowed to do what they want. There's no rules. Get it? This is the satanic mindset. So it goes on to say conservatives such as Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who superheaded the lawsuit challenging the Obama guidance, hailed the Trump administration action. Our fight over the bathroom directive has always been about former President Obama's attempt to bypass Congress and rewrite the laws to fit his political agenda or radical social change, said Paxton, who is a Republican. We see a map of status of state sex segregated facilities legislation. States that have considered legislation in 2016 that would restrict access to sex segregated facilities on the basis of biological sex. Most recent data available as of January 5th, 2017. As you can see, it's really just signed into law in certain states like North Carolina. And I do truly believe that this is for a bigger picture, a bigger divide and conquer initiative. Transgender legal advocates have criticized the state rights argument, saying federal law and civil rights are matters for the federal government to enforce, not the states. The article goes on to say that courts may have the final say, that the federal law in question, known as Title IX, bans sex discrimination in education, but it remains unsettled whether Title IX protections extend to a person's gender identity. So this is going to become a bigger story, again, as if it already hasn't been. It's been a huge story over the last year. We see ridiculous stuff going on where we have girls and the Boy Scouts claiming to be boys. I mean, it's absolute nonsense. But you'll see the false idols like Ellen, the people on The View, the people on, Fox News, all these channels. They'll all be pushing it. They'll all be saying, well, it's not fair to these kids. And they'll get people out there emotionally riled up. So they're thinking to themselves, well, this isn't fair. This is an attack on kids. Meanwhile, millions of kids are going missing around the world who are being prostituted into these sex trafficking rings for satanic sexual ritual abuse, as well as dismemberment and human sacrifice rituals. And nobody blinks an eye because nobody thinks that that's real. But we care more about if a 5-year-old has the right to take a dump wherever he wants. I mean, that's the insanity of the world that we live in today. It says the courts are likely to have the final say over whether Title IX covers transgender students. The Supreme Court could pass on that question in the Virginia case and allow lower courts to weigh in or go ahead and decide what the law means. Obama's education department issued the guidance in response to queries from school districts across the country about how to accommodate transgender students in gender-segregated bathrooms. Go in the bathroom of the private part you were born with, because that's what you are, no matter what. I don't care if you cut it off and you dress up as a man, and you're a man, you dress up as a woman and you cut off your private, you're still a man. You don't have the genetics to be a woman, and you never will be. It says it also covers a host of other issues, such as the importance of addressing transgender students by their preferred names and pronouns, and schools' responsibilities to prevent harassment and bullying of transgender children. So they could actually even go to school now, make up their own names and pronouns to describe what they are. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's laughable. It's insanity. This is insanity. 13 states led by Texas sued to stop the Obama guidelines, and a U.S. district judge in Texas temporarily halted their full implementation. The White House previously boasted of Trump's support for LGBT rights, noting in a January 31st statement that he was the first Republican president nominee to mention the community in his nomination acceptance speech. And look, I know people out there going to go, this is great and wonderful. Of course it is. Of course it is on paper, right? But we know that their goal ultimately is for this transgender agenda to be pushed. We're seeing characters now on TV that are transgender, just like we saw with gays. Every show has a gay. Now we'll see every show with a tranny. This indoctrination period is just in the beginning, but it's going to continue on. So while this might be a temporary restriction on this, you can bet your bottom dollar over time, it will eventually be allowed to go on around the United States. They can't just throw this down everyone's throat without pushback. There always has to be pushback, right? It has to seem like a tug of war in a sense. So that's what it's seeming like, right? Now all of a sudden, oh, Trump's fighting back and the trannies aren't. Their ultimate goal is going to be to, they want a transgender nation. They don't want gender anymore. It's all about one, right? One world government, one world religion, one world currency, one gender, all of that stuff. So at some point in time in the future, they will push this and try to implement it around the world, but they can't just do it without push and pull, because that's what they have to do to create this. Okay, well, they're fighting back. Well, because otherwise people will think it's forced upon them. And if people think it's forced upon them, they start to actually wake up to stuff. It's the illusion of freedom and the illusion of choice that makes them continue to go along inside of this and think that all this stuff is real, because they're tricked into thinking that they're making choices that people, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, this or that, it's a democracy. That's what keeps them going inside of the matrix, the illusion of choice. So we'll see what comes of it, but at least for the time being, hopefully this will go forward and we won't have to deal with talking about it for a while. But I'm sure it's just going to lead to protests, in the upcoming weeks, rallies. We'll hear all the talking heads on television attacking Donald Trump, causing division amongst all of us, the right versus the left, exactly what they want. Order out of chaos, divide and conquer. Same initiative you see going on all the time. But we'll hear the transgender community continue to cry out for the right to take a dump wherever they want, because there's nothing more important in the world than issues like this, when kids are getting slaughtered every day, where nobody will investigate Pizzagate, nobody will investigate, even reopen the McMartin trials, or any of these things that have been covered up. But this stuff matters. Who can take a leak where they want? And if a 6-year-old can tell his teacher that he wants to be called Michelle instead of Michael. Welcome to America, folks. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.